Welcome back to the channel, family, and another podcast. My name is Paul. I'm a recovered addict. I live in Peterhead in Scotland, and I'm absolutely thrilled to be joined today by Nat B.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Paul, for this opportunity to carry a message. It's it's an honor and a privilege to be able to sort of carry the message to the still suffering addict. I totally remember what that was like. So when I'm just going to sort of pause maybe, just to sort of center myself, and make sure that it's coming from a place that will direct what I say to my primary purpose, which is obviously.
So I'll hand it back over to you in just a moment now. So, thanks so much for coming along today. First things first, thank you for your time, and your commitment to the program and the fellowship. Really appreciate you being here. I just want to give a shout out to our listeners and folks that are perhaps new to the channel. I want to say that if you're still using drugs, there's a lot of help available. There's now over 50 podcasts on this channel. There's 14 on the 12 steps. There's 2 on step 1 and 2 on step 2. There's about 15 personal stories. We've got a new format, which is like a big book study between 4 persons, lasting an hour and 20 minutes. There's now a trio of those on the channel, and that's a new format we're going to be introducing going forward. So there's a lot of help available. We'll have on the screen during this podcast information from our basic text, a book called Alcoholics Anonymous, which can be read or listened to completely free at aa.org anytime. We'll also have information about meetings on the screen towards the end of the podcast. You can pause and rewind this. If you want to get involved in the conversation, wherever you see this post on WhatsApp or YouTube or intherooms.com, please do so. There's a lot of help available. So I'm really pleased you've joined us, Nat, and now I'm just going to hand the floor over to you, sir.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. My name is Nat. I'm a recovered alcoholic addict. I've been in the rooms for, I'd say, on and off 2 years now, 2 years. And it was suggested when I started to share that, I start off by talking about, what it was like, what happened and what happened now, and what life is like now. I don't really want to go into sort of a whole sort of catalogue of the history that is me, that brought me to the rooms. I don't know if I've come to understand that that's not necessarily relevant, although but I will talk about it. It will be relevant to certain aspects of me when I embarked on the steps, because, and so what was it like? Well, I'd always been alternative, and I never really fitted in anywhere. I don't feel like I found connecting with people on any sort of deep level really, really difficult. And it's really weird because I had this sort of superiority stroke inferiority complex. I was always better than, or sort of lower than. I was never just me. I used to people please. I found to fit in. Although, and I remember, but having the need to desperately try to fit in. And I think many, I think that's kind of like something that we've all got, really, to that need to want to be a part of something. So when so drugs for me was always something I did. I can't remember not doing drugs. I started probably, and alcohol, but I had my first drink when I was about 9, I think, and that was at a Christmas party, a family do, and we used to go out, go upstairs and steal, like, little bits and like glass drinks and that were left lying around. And I remember there was a bottle, and I drank some champagne, and so did all my other cousins, but I was the only one that sort of like passed out and missed the whole of Christmas. I guess the warning signs were always there when you know, when I kind of look at it in terms of you know, and anyway, you know, so most people I've come to understand, you know, and that was that throughout when I was a teenager as well. That's how I used to drink. I'd drink like we used to get these like super strength like Tennants, and like I remember drinking 2 of those and just passing out. There was always these dire consequences when I got involved in anything. Now with cocaine, I didn't try cocaine until my sort of like I'd say late 20s. And at the time, you know, I used to take it with a lot. I was doing a lot of ease, and even with ease, you know, the first time I took ease, I took like, you know, 12. You know, who does that? You know, I do. You know, and I used to wear that you know, that crazy renegade sort of like outlook to drugs and being quite a libertine, like a badge, like and yeah, so cocaine, I didn't take that until I was probably in my late 20s. And, you know, I didn't have that craving, that you know, that obsession, it didn't hit me for many years. I was quite highly functioning as a person, you see. I came from, just like me, being quite, I mean, the reason why I probably didn't fit in anyway, because I came from many different sort of situations. I lived in the inner city. I went to a private school. You know, you know, but my home life was quite chaotic and traumatic, and I left home very early. So on we went with my this cocaine, and I used to love doing it with ease. I used to, you know, I used to love the way it made me feel, especially when I combined the two. And I'd be dancing, and I'd be going out, and you know, sitting up till the sun came up in the morning. I used to love that. I didn't really used to have come downs, you know, as well. People used to talk about those, and I never used to get. I never used to get any come downs. It was I used to love the whole process, you know, from start to finish. So when did it start going wrong? It started going wrong relatively late in life. So from mid, you know, so early 30s, all out the way through my 30s into my 40s. Yeah, I continued to take cocaine and you know, and booze, but the booze was always, a lot of people were telling me I was an alcoholic, and I would really get offended if people did, but the consequences weren't immediate. You know, they weren't that. You know, I was still functioning. I still used to get up. You know, I you know, occasionally I used to drink till blackouts, and you know, end up, you know, wake up, and there's quite a few times I'll be sick everywhere, and you know, you used to just shrug it off. Now a lot of people will come on to that in a minute, that you know, that people take those as warning signs, but you know, not me. But it wasn't until it was cocaine that brought me to my knees, though. And it changed when I met my partner, and they took cocaine the way I did. You know, like we used to party. And at first, when we took it, you know, we used to be out, we used to be clubbing, in London, you know, in the clubs and on, you know, certain alternative nightclub type things where sex and drugs kind of went together. You know, it was part of the scene. And yeah, it wasn't until I got involved with the sex and the drugs, like mixing the two together, that was my downfall, because I, you know, whereas before I would be out, you know, dancing in clubs, and you know, I didn't combine. It was ease, pills, you know, coke, drink, but it wasn't necessarily mixed in with the sex. When I found my girlfriend and we mixed all of that together, life just took a different, I went to a different dimension. And you know, why did I like taking drugs? I mean, you know, I just like the way that they made me feel, to be honest. I mean, I could be feeling sad, could be feeling happy. It was just, you know, I took them for fun. You know, I liked, because I liked the way it made me feel. But then it got to a point with my girlfriend and I where we that obsession, the craving started. You know, I stopped when we took it. The line started getting bigger. We weren't getting the same sort of hit anymore. You know, and we could see these consequences like the nosebleeds, and you know, I'll show the heartbeats. My girlfriend would be, you know, looking around for specks of coke on the floor, and you know, she used to get like paranoid, and I never used to get like paranoid like that. But I used to, it used to change me as a person. The whole Dr. Jekyll and, you know, Mr. Hyde, you know, that was me. You know, the change in me as a person, it surprised me, like the lengths that I would go to through when that craving started. I would exhaust all my money. I would, you know, I'd probably sell, like, I'll do anything. Basically, I'll do anything to get cocaine. And life very suddenly, after taking what I thought cocaine, and that was, I really sort of got fooled by that drug, because, like, as I said, I took it for many years, and like I could take like 0.5 gram, and that would last me. You know, I could pick it up, you know, and like that would last me the whole night. And then suddenly, with this girlfriend, this partner of mine, you know, we were buying silly amounts. You know, it was ridiculous, and we were staying up days. You know, and we were spending hundreds of, you know, thousands. You know, we spent a lot of money. And I thought, and it got to a point where, you know, I just couldn't stop obsessing about it. I remember once we was getting on a flight. We was coming back home to London, coming back to London. My girlfriend's Polish, and coming back from Poland, and was like, nope, we're not going to do anything. We're not going to do anything. We're not going to take any drugs. The minute we got off that plane, right, we were calling the dealer, and the dealer was waiting for me at my flat when I got back. I mean, and I couldn't for the life of me work out what was going on there, because I worked out, clever me, you know, and I like to think I'm clever. I've now come to understand there's no outthinking cocaine addiction. You can't outthink it, you know. So I used to think to myself, if I don't take that first one, all of these consequences aren't gonna happen. They're not gonna happen. So, but then 2 days later, 3 days later, I'll be scratching my head again. Now, how did I take that first one? I know what's going to happen. Why did I take it? And I didn't understand. I could not understand that. And I just didn't like that feeling of feeling out of control. I wasn't in control of myself. You know, I wasn't in control of my money. I wasn't in control of, like, you know, the things that I was doing. I started to, like, you know, take Pomp's money off my girlfriend, you know, borrow money off my mum. You know, I was getting payday loans left, right, and center. You know, especially at the end of the session when I didn't want it to finish, and it was just looking horrific. The finances were shot. You know, it was terrible. And I remember on one, so you know what happened. There was one night I was walking across the park, and by this time I'd be like, to calm myself down, I used to, like, down, like, you know, when I say quarter bottles, like half bottles of brandy. So I'm walking through the park, as you do. Just got another, you know, and I was on that little triangle sort of like route, you know, from my flat to the cash point, to the off license, back, wait for the dealer, pick up, then start that whole little merry-go-round. So somewhere, it was probably around, I don't know, 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm walking through the park, merrily swigging some, and I wasn't merrily, by the way, it wasn't merrily, I can't call it that, but and I was swigging some brandy, and I remember just sitting down on the park and, you know, on a bench, and I looked down and I saw a man sleeping outside on a bench. And I thought, shit, man. I mean, and I'm sorry if this is family friendly, but yeah. And I thought, this is where I'm headed. I'm headed there. I could see it, you know, I could see it. And on that spree, I came home, finished the drugs, and, you know, yet another day where, you know, you didn't want to open up the curtains, you know, the sun's shining outside, and you could hear everybody, normal people, just getting on with their lives, you know, and I'm in bed, and you know, and you couldn't sleep because, you know, that your nose is all blocked, it's caked, you know what I mean, and it's just horrible. It's horrible. it became using in the end, by the end, gone were those days where, you're dancing around, the music's on, you're feeling it, it's great, it's a oneness, it's a togetherness, and, you're in some pretty nice spots in London and you're getting invited backstage and you're thinking, wow, this is really it. Like in the book, I've arrived, I'm part of this wicked counterculture, you know what I mean? I've gone with those days. I was in my bedroom with my girlfriend. She wants to bloody go to sleep and I want to bloody have sex and get some more drugs. And, it's not nice. And then I remember, this is another time where we came back from that, with down in the brandy from the park, saw the man. We run out of money. Now we're in bed. And she just turns around and says, look, I'm going to leave you if you carry this on. And, I couldn't stop. There were times when my kids were in the flat and I would be nipping off to the toilet, to go and do lines. So and these were just a straightener, just to straighten me out, but something in, that man seeing on the bench, my girlfriend, saying what she said, I just looked up. I remember looking up at the sky, and I said, like, God, please save me, please save me. On the God thing, I don't really, I've always, it's a weird one. I would describe myself as, I don't know, I veer between, slightly spiritual and agnostic, I don't know what's out there. I think something's out there. But anytime I was in trouble, and this was the extent of my relationship with God, actually, when I'm in trouble, that's when I'm looking for him. That was my and I looked up and I said, God, please help me. And he did. He bloody did. I don't know how, but I picked up the phone. I was speaking to some man on the C.A hotline. And what an angel this man was. He spoke to me for like it must have been 2 hours straight. He directed me, what kind of thing that was. That struck me as odd, because I couldn't, I was babbling, I was incomprehensible. Yeah, he sat me down. Well, he didn't sit. I was sat down. I don't know what he was doing. He was on the hotline, and he just said, look, you gave me all these numbers and all these meetings, and this was around 2020. May, June 2020, right in the middle of COVID, lockdown, all that sort of stuff. My recovery has been through Zoom, by the way. I've never been to a face-to-face meeting. Actually, I did with a friend of mine, but not for myself. And that friend actually said, Nat, do you want to, I think you need to stay here. But I didn't want to listen to that. And this is the thing with this stuff. You have to get it yourself. You can't, there's no amount of, it says in the book, no amount of frothy appeal. No, not my mum crying, my kids, my ex-partners saying you're a shit. Nothing is going to work. Even potentially losing your job. Nothing. Going bankrupt. None of it is going to work. Anyway, but I was, when I came into that room, there was just a moment where that window of opportunity, which I believe doesn't stay open for very long. I was at the right place at the right time, and CA basically opened its arms out to me. And at the time coming into the rooms, I didn't think that I could stay clean at all. In fact, there was a part of me that really sort of had, I just didn't think it would work for me. I had trouble getting my head around abstinence for the rest of my life, even from drink, especially from drink. Cocaine, I suppose deep down, looking back, I think I had this thing where I was just going to come in the rooms and I was going to, just clear myself up and, maybe sort out my finances and get back out there, and perhaps, this time, make a success. Because up until everything started going wrong, in all other areas of my life, I was functioning. Well, I thought I was, but when we get onto the step 4 bit, you know, it was quite clear that you know, it was very, I was functioning, but at a superficial level. It was all, there was no substance, you know, do you know what I mean? No real stuff, no real relationships. You did all right career wise, but not as good as you could because there's issues, relationships with your children, you know, partners, you know, breakdown. There was no, you know, no real friends. You know, so things were very on a superficial level, and you tell yourself that you're functioning anyway. But where was I going with that? So yeah, so I came into the rooms, and yeah, I didn't think it would work, but I stuck around. And I remember meeting somebody. It was there's another line that's on at like 11 o'clock, and Zoom wasn't even a thing then, actually, because it was this sort of telephone thing. And I remember just speaking to people, and I was just like, wow, you know, some of these, this was one of these lines where there wasn't really that much solution, but there was a real unity. I didn't even know what I didn't at the time, I didn't know what the problem was. Well, I could see the consequences of the problem. I didn't really know the cause, if you know what I mean, of the problem. I certainly didn't know what the solution was. But what I met when I came into the room, it was just wow. You've got people that they're like me. Wow. Yeah, they're like me. And it's by chance as well. And I feel a lot of this is like high power stuff, you know. But there was a guy who actually was in the room. This is like a worldwide meeting, and he had a guy that lived like a couple of miles away, not a couple, well, about a mile away from me. And me and him started talking, and he said, "Oh, well, come down. Have you got a book?" I said, "No, not really." And he said, "Well, come down to mine, and I'll give you a book." And I was like, "Well, I don't know. You don't trust these bloody crackheads, man. You know what I mean? I don't want to but I don't want you to know where I live. You know, I was really just suspicious of everything, everyone, and you know." Anyway, I went and met him, and you know, I've still got that book to this day. I need a new one. And that was it. And then I started talking to him, and then I found out about sponsors. And then I remember having the conversation with him, and this guy that gave me the book, and he said, "I need a sponsor." And he said, "Well, what type of sponsor would you like?" So I started talking about, really, again, I started talking about, it's really weird. I started talking about this sponsor that basically had things that my idea was to get this sponsor that kind of had things in life that I wanted. Not just necessarily, and again, my messed up thinking there. Really, what I should have thought about was, you know, looking for a sponsor that was armed with the facts and, you know, living a life happy, if you see what I mean. Whereas I was looking for somebody that you know, was sober and had material things. Now there's a bit of a difference there. I've had a bit of a sea change on that. Anyway, so he put me in touch with that sponsor. We connect up, and he starts taking me through the work. In a very sort of long, we took a long time on step 1. You know, I'm powerless. Yeah, I knew that. I knew I was powerless. Yeah, my life's unmanageable. Yeah, no shit, Sherlock. You know what I mean? Of course it is. You know, but then when we started getting to sort of, you know, step 3, I remember at that time having a deep inside myself, well, but I'm not sure about this bloody higher power stuff, you know, this God, you know, this God thing. I remember, and I thought, well, I'll just, you know, I'll just say. And I remember my sponsor at the time, because I tried to debate it with him, because I'm always up for debate. And he said, "Nat, look, the ones that get on here are just ones that kind of just accept it, just follow orders, just follow orders, basically." And to a certain degree, he's right. But then looking back, if I was in his position, I would have given my sponsee time, I believe, to sort of really sort of process what they're saying, what they're saying, and what it means to them before they move on. Anyway, so we embarked on the steps, And I think that step 4 was the first time that I'd actually ever really looked at myself, because basically I was just full of BS, really. Like I'll tell myself I'm this and I'm that, and everyone else point the finger at them, say, look, it's your fault, it's their fault because of this, and my mum's fault because of that. It's my traumatic childhood, the abuse that I suffered when I was a child. If you had my life, you would bloody, no wonder I'm like I am. Do you know what I mean? That's why I'm going to go out and use some more. And I found that I was wallowing in stuff that was just years old, man, years old, like, years old. And it caused so much destruction to my relationship. And I didn't realize that all of those things were like just a pathway to just the dark side. Sorry to get all Star Wars on it, but it really is. And I didn't realize that, So it was the first time actually that I really looked at myself. And I remember saying to my sponsor, particularly about certain resentments that I just wanted to carry with me. I would have carried them with me happily to the grave, certain ones for certain people, Well, the way he put it to me was like, are those people, those people, are they thinking about you? Are they thinking about what it is? And it was the first time I thought, no, actually, I'm the only one that's really thinking about this. Everyone else seems to be getting on with their lives, And he said, well, what's your part in it? I said, excuse me, what's your part in it? And I got really like offended. I was a child. I was like, and then he said, well, how old are you now? And I told him my age. And he said, so for all this time, you've carried that around. Can you not see that that is probably a bit unhealthy and a bit selfish? And that was a light bulb moment. Plus reading the book about what it says about resentments. That was like the first time that I'd ever really looked at life like that. And then he told me the resentment prayer. Basically just to show the same kindness that you would to, to this person, see that he's sick, and, show that person the same kindness that you would to a sick friend. And so, and he said, and I remember that at the time, I remember listening to that, but somewhere putting it in my database that, no, I can't do that. I can't do that. Anyway, so I went through the steps and I paid my amends. I was sharing in the meetings, and I remember he said, you've done the steps now, you're recovered. And I remember that, and this was where I think a bit of aftercare is really important as a sponsor, because that message that we say a lot of things in meetings. There's a lot you're going to hear a lot of cliches, like keep coming back, it works if you work it, this connection to the higher power, a lot of cliches, but the cliches kind of for a reason, and we say things, a lot of these prayers that we say, but these are to be really deeply understood, and they really need to, you really need to live these things. So I couldn't get over it, so I completed the steps, and I was in meetings, and at the time, I remember at the time, and I would speak, but I was coming out, I was still, my whole primary purpose of going to a meeting was to just basically do an emotional sort of shit in the room, really. It's to unload how I was feeling. Although I would hear that, my sponsor and my grand sponsor say, at the time that, we're here for the newcomer, that's the primary purpose, you would hear, but I'll still do it. And that I didn't quite, for a long while, that was my whole purpose, to be in those rooms. I didn't sponsor anyone. I did for a long while. I did the inventory, and I did the prayers, and and meditations, and I used to feel good. But then suddenly I stopped, because I was deluded. You see, delusional thinking. That I was recovered means kind of cured, and I thought that I could do this recovery game, on my own terms, because that's the sort of idiot that I am. Willful. And I'll I'll sometimes, and it's just the same as when I was at school, and I'd be doing a maths exercise, and if I couldn't answer the question, the textbook's wrong. I was that kind of guy, that was me. Anyway, so so I wasn't necessarily saying that the book was wrong, but I just wasn't living as is suggested. And on those suggestions, I've come to understand that when Bill originally wrote the book, these things were directions. If you read the first edition of the book, a lot of that stuff was, there's been a lot of like modifications to the wording, to make it more palatable to the masses. But then if you're here, I imagine, you take those as those suggestions as directions, because inevitably this is what happens. It's outlined in the book, and it's so said, so done. One day, for no apparent reason, I thought it was okay to have a drink, and because cocaine was my issue, wasn't it? That's what brought me to my knees. That's what sort of wrecked my finances, not alcohol. We had certain issues coming up, family gatherings with certain family members that I found very stressful, and that was all leading up to it. Rather than using the program, I sort of just resorted to sort of old tried and tested ways of and looking back, I don't understand why I did that, but and I think the book's quite kind of clear. There is, because the obsession, it's momentary bloody, that first drink, that first line, that's momentary insanity, and it is insane, because and this is that old adage, if you know that you've got this allergy, you don't react differently. I've got a whole catalogue of life that says, life episodes that say this is what happens when I indulge in any sort of like activity. It goes a bit Pete Tong, it goes wrong. And yet again, my mind but I've got a mind that will often at times tell me, no, it's all right, you can manage this, you can modify this, it's not going to be like that, because you're going to do this, or well, we're only just going to get one. And that's what happened. So I relapsed. Fortunately though, that relapse wasn't it wasn't a pleasant experience, in the sense that the consequences weren't half as bad as when I first came into the room into 2020. But when when you know that there's a solution, and before, when you're going through the work and you're going through those steps, it's a lot of be willing to believe. But once you've gone through those steps, you really do have a psychic change. You really do. You don't see the world the way, you don't see things the way but you need to maintain that level of fitness. It's like going to the gym, if you don't keep it up, you'll have a fat belly soon, and and it's the same with your spiritual fitness. You need to keep it up, and I didn't. So when that, and it will come, those thoughts, that obsession, it's never going to leave me. And that's what I know now. I didn't know that before. I didn't really know that obsession, because once you've gone X amount of time clean and sober, your mind plays tricks on you. Think, yeah, I'm okay. I'm all right. In fact, well, actually, so having that relapse, I think, I don't, when I first had it, I remember taking a while to come back and talk to my fellows, because I was so vocal in the rooms, I was really helpful. Again, ego, all that sort of stuff, ego, all that kind of rubbish, and I was speaking to my sponsor about it. He said, Nat, listen, just don't be stupid. You had to do a bit more research, and he was really, 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 really understanding about it. And so I came back and I made a point of going to all the rooms that I went to before, to tell them what exactly happened to me. Because again, the primary purpose is, to carry a message to the newcomer. And I went through the steps. This time with totally different person. He does these steps in a totally different ways. He's crazy as batshit. He's batshit crazy, this guy. And but I love him to pieces, to be honest. And he's more of a brother. And we have this relationship where we talk, whereas I didn't used to have that, and I needed that, you know. And I wasn't, you know, I didn't really. I needed that. I needed that togetherness, you know. In the triangle, you've got unity, service, and you know, you've got the and the steps. You've got the three things, and they're all important, you know. And I needed the unit, because I've never had, you know, and it sounds sad, but I've never had real friends, you know. Had lots of fair weather friends, lots of people that look, you know, to be seen with, and all that sort of stuff. And you know, but when you're down in the trenches, and you know, this is what you have here, and this is what you have here. So that relapse, it wasn't, whilst the consequences weren't bad, you can't really, once you've got these concepts, you've had that psychic change, if you've had the psychic change, that is, then you can't really enjoy it again the same way that you did, because you know where it's going to take you. You're using, you know, you're armed with those facts. You know what's going to happen. You know, you see the progression. And sure enough, when during that relapse, that progression was so quick. It was surprising how you just went back to your old ways. It was just like putting on a pair of old slippers. You know what I mean? It fitted perfectly. And within a few, like, you know, within a short period of time, a few weeks, I was back practically where I was before. Fortunately, I came in the rooms, and I just reached that. It was another God moment. So I was in this random room, and then I hear this guy, and it was a guy that we went through the whole. We came into the rooms together, and and he stayed. And I was like, again, my ego and my just my attitudes. I remember thinking about him because of the way he took drugs and the drugs he took. You know, I used to think, listening to, you know, sitting there listening to him share that, you know, and it's again just sizing people up in the room by what they're saying and where they're at and where you're at and you're here and they're there. You know, I mean, coming back into the room, it's been so humbling. It's been so humbling, because you know what, this is life and death for me. I remember this new sponsor saying, Nat, you know how important this is, don't you? And I said, yeah, this is life and death. And I really do believe that. I've gone back and I've analysed, why did that happen? What did I do wrong? And I've made the adjustments, you know. I'm pleased to say, you know, like, I've got my first sponsee, and that was a big thing that was missing the first time. You know, I can't wait to take somebody, to hopefully take them through the work. I've got to obviously sort of keep a lid on myself, because again, being ego driven sometimes, you know, be mindful of yourself, you know, their recovery is their business. My job is to take this person through the work the best I can. I think I can do it well, but you know, I can't control, you know, and I won't try to control, you know, their recovery. I can't do that, you know, and I've got to really accept that. So I can imagine this going to be quite difficult sometimes. You know, people don't do, you know, people aren't robots, are they? They don't do what you want them to do when you want them to do it, you know. Yeah, so this time, I think, coming back in, you know, my whole, you know, I thought I had and I did, you know, because and I did have a psychic change, but I think the book outlines it for some people, but you know, it's slow, and that's how it's been for me. For some people, it's quick. I mean, that day when I first came into the room, I couldn't believe how quickly the obsession to use was lifted. It was like almost instantly. But this time, coming in, my whole outlook on my approach when I go into rooms, it's like sometimes I think, what the hell, I'm not even talking. I don't even think it's me talking, but I'm talking with a totally different agenda. Whereas before I was, you know, my recovery, and you know, now I'm caring about, you know, other people, and you know, because that is what this is about. It's about, and I didn't see that, and I feel sorry. I feel sorry that I didn't see that before, even though everyone's telling me all the time. But you know, people can tell you till you're blue in the face. It's like when, you know, it's up to you to see things and to sort of live things. And you know, now I pray every day. Every day I pray. You know, and I, you know, I do certain prayers. You know, so certain prayers are quite pertinent to me. You know, I do the 12-step prayers, all 12. You know, because every one of them is a really good reinforcement of certain principles, i.e., you know, handing your will over, you know, being in a certain mindset to make your amends, you know, being ever mindful of self-rationalization, you know, of behaviors, you know, giving out the message to people, you know, meditating, you know, again, and this is really key as well for me when I came back in, which was different. I knew I needed to go on a hunt for God. It's fun. Somebody told me, well, God's not lost. Yeah, so God isn't lost, but I need to go and find my own God. I'm not going to talk about what that is because it's unique to me. I've got my own ideas, but it's not me anymore. And it's something that I can, because before, when I used to pray, certain things I would pray, I just couldn't get my head around a benevolent God, you know, in the sky that's actually going to care about my life. So I had to find something that I could connect to, you know, and really mean it, you know, and really feel it and really trust in it. Another thing that's changed, coming back in, is before it was about belief, but belief is different to faith. Now I've got kind of, you know, belief is like you hope something might go a certain way sort of thing, but you don't really have any sort of evidence, you know, whereas now I've been through the steps twice. I understand, I've seen people's recovery, I've seen my own recovery. I was seemingly insane, to be honest. I was, you know, my thinking was totally insane. I would catch myself sometimes outside of a spree and look at the carnage that I'd created, and I thought, there's no hope for me. None at all. And I was recovered from that state to being, wow, it makes me emotional thinking about it, you know. So I know there's a God out there because I could not do this, you know, and I know that doctors wouldn't have been able to do that. And I thought it was when I was in that hopeless state, I thought, well, how can a doctor sort this mind out? You know, how can anybody sort this out? It's got to come from me. It's got to come from me. This program has given me so much because it's allowed me to just let go and see that, and let God in, man, you know. That's what it's allowed me to do. And you know, now I'm happy to say that I've got a God. And if anyone's listening to this, I mean, it's really important, you know, that you find, you know, because that's really what the steps are about. You know, I don't like to talk about it, and I've been told, suggested I don't talk about God so much, but it's about, the steps are, let's face it, it's about connecting to a higher power, you know, and you need to, or we need to find a way to connect. I didn't before the first time. I would find it was like dead relatives, but dead relatives, they weren't, you know, that didn't quite work for me. Then it would be like all sorts of examples, you know, ancestors, or it would be like gravity, or like, you know, mad things, but yeah, I'm pleased to say I found that connection. Right, so yeah, so helping people, you know, that is so important to me now, you know. So as well as the God thing, my higher power that I pray to, you know, every day, you know, without fail. I get on my knees. I do these guided breathing sessions, meditations, you know, which is great for me. And every time I do them, it just makes me feel wonderful, makes me feel amazing, you know. And I just kind of plan my day, you know, around recovery, you know, going out, trying to reach out to people. That's, you know, tick, you know, being of service. I'm setting up a meeting, you know, just keeping myself in the middle of the triangle, you know, just of service, you know, because somebody told me that, you know, you've got people that have sponsors. You've got three groups: people that don't have a sponsor, people that have a sponsor, and people that do service. And it's the people that do service that kind of stay, and obviously have a sponsor, but I'm not saying and do steps obviously, but the people that do service, they're the ones that stay clean. And I wanted this so badly, because what it gives me, recovery and abstinence, which I didn't see before. I didn't really see, because there was clearly some sort of lurking notion or arrogance or whatever it was. To be honest, it doesn't matter now, to be honest, because what matters is that every day the book clearly sets out what you need to do. And if you do that, really, have they ever seen a person fail? So you can recover. Anyone can recover. Well, there's certain people that the book talks about that probably, it might be a bit tricky, like psychopaths and stuff like that. But, but generally speaking, if you're honest, if you're open-minded, if you're willing, really willing, just embark on this. What have you got to lose, man? There's nothing to lose. Those dealers are waiting out the minute, those dealers, they're waiting for you, waiting for me. I was just reading in the paper actually as well, and I'm going to end on, that people are actually dying of this, and before that used to be quite abstract, other people dying of drugs, but but seeing it and becoming of a certain age, and listening, it's not glamorous, is it? You know what I mean? A rock star death, you know what I mean? I want to live, and I want to live good, I want to live clean, and that's all I've got for you today. Thank you, Paul.
Nat, that was brilliant. Thank you so much. The truth is I love listening to you, and I've been listening to every word there, and I've even taken a few notes. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. A quick halftime announcement to folks. If you've landed on this podcast and this is your first connection with Cocaine Anonymous, welcome. Please check out the other broadcasts. In a few minutes, we'll have something on the screen about how to get to face-to-face and Zoom meetings. We have on screen right now an excerpt from a book called Alcoholics Anonymous, which we call the Big Book, which is like our basic text that Nat's been referring to a few times in his share. And there's other literature. We use another book called The 12 Steps and 12 Traditions, which can also be listened to or read anytime free at aa.org. And you've made so many wonderful points there. And I want to talk about God. So that's what I want to talk about for a couple of minutes. And it's ironic because that's what I wrote down was one of your sentences early on in your wonderful share, was that you said, I consider myself somewhere between spiritual and agnostic. And then you said, I prayed and he answered me. He bloody did. And it just got me, it just got me thinking that is the truth of it. The amount of times I've heard persons say, oh, I'm this and that, but, I think there's a creator. And I remember I was working with one man last year, Nat, a lovely chap, but again, a desperate case. He'd very likely be dead now, were it not for the grace and mercy of a loving creator. And that conscious contact that begins in step 1 and continues right through the steps, where the power comes in step 11. We ask for power, we ask for wisdom and serenity, the defects to be removed, and for us to live in the solution, taking inventory and carrying a message. And I remember I said to this chap, I said, so do you think we all just appeared here? And he said, well, I don't know. He said, there has to be something, there has to be a thing. I said, so you're happy? And that was it. We was on step 3, because in step 2, God, a higher power, the creator, spirit of the universe, is spoken of, Nat, as being a power greater, a greater power that can restore us to sanity. But in step 3, it's made a decision to turn our will and life over to care of God as we understood him. So when I'm working step 3, for me, the precise wording is vital, and that's the first place in the steps where you have the personification of a divine being, spirit of the universe, a creator. And as part of that, I will usually give chaps a little bit of homework, as it were. Who is God? Where is God? How can you access God, and what difference can God make in your life? And then they come back with their answers. And the next day, because I believe in getting the steps done rather rapidly, you know, without great gaps in between, ideally every day if the person's got the time.
Me too.
And I'll let you back in a sec. I'm nearly done. And I just want to say, I said to this chap, he gave me his answer. He said, "Oh, I think there's a thing." And I said, "So you're happy to turn your will and life over to the thing, are you?" And he went, "I see what you mean." I said, "Now then, we're not a cult, we're not a religion, but there's a creator. It's not you. And you'd better hope the creator's all powerful, all seeing, and all knowing. Otherwise, given your history, you are in big trouble."
Yeah.
And he went on. I said, "If you can just realize that all you need to do is answer one very simple question: is there a creator? Yes or no? Because if there's not, you've got a whole lot of explaining to do." And I've seen this simple presentation of this actually save lives now. I really have, I really have, and it's very important, and then persons start to pray, and the power is in the prayer. More prayer, more power. So, you really moved me and made me chuckle when you said I prayed and he answered me. He bloody did. Over to you, Nat.
Yeah. Just thanks, Paul. I mean, what I would say, and because of the where obviously the origins of this. I mean, it's the steps are based in sort of Christian, based, principles. The Oxford Group, but then thank God, that Bill had the foresight to sort of, and he probably did because of the sort of tension within the group at the time. That half of the original members were agnostic, and then half, I presume, were of one of the Abrahamic sort of faiths. But that God is it is really roomy. I've even heard that atheists have turned the 12 steps and used it for them. It would be interesting actually to see how they sort of apply that to themselves. And if in the book Bill uses all sorts of euphemisms for God. Spirit of the universe, creator, and you can tell when he sort of capitalizes these sort of phrases. So you can just take your pick, I would say, but be authentic with it. And find something that is unique to yourself, that you can kind of believe in.
Take your pick, but make sure it's not a shovel.
Yeah.
It's an old builder's joke. I mean, and when it comes to alcoholism and sobriety, it's actually a very important thing to realize there is a creator. For me, it's the absolute bedrock of the steps. For me, it's crystal clear. Absolutely crystal clear. An all-powerful creator. It's there. Take a look at step 3, take a look at step 11. We sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood God, praying only for the knowledge of his will for us and the power to carry that out. So if you were God, now that means that I say, right now, okay, today's a new day. I need you to tell me what you want me to do today, now, because I'm turning my will and life over to you. Okay? So I'd better hope that you're able to handle all that, and we leave the grouch and the brainstorm and the debating club to persons that are not alcoholic. But for you and me, it's actually pretty important. And I think it has to do with accountability. My experience now has been this business of being transparent and accountable. And it's something we have to work at every day. I don't always feel like that. I don't, you know what I mean? But there has to be a measure of it every day. And I think God makes that possible, And it's interesting you mentioned atheists, because a good friend of mine, in fact, I have several friends that are clean and sober that are professing atheists. I'm not always convinced when someone says that to me. I think sometimes they're just being jolly awkward. But I know that there are some genuine atheists. In fact, I saw a chap I know downtown today. But the point I wanted to make is there was a friend of mine came on this channel who is an atheist, and he worked the steps as he saw fit, and he's still clean and sober today. His share is on this channel, my friend Chris. His podcast is on this channel. And so, yeah, I mean, over to you, Nat.
Yeah, I mean, but that, I mean, and this is it, you know, because fundamentally what this is about is, you know, for me, spirituality, not religion, and through that spirituality, and obviously we need that connection with a higher power, be it God, be it spirit of the universe, be it, I don't know, reality, whatever you want to that to be, you need to connect to it, you need to believe in it. And you know, it's I can't, as you said, Paul, I can't reiterate just how important that is, you know, to take you out of yourself, because if you haven't got that, then you're basically running on self-will. And eventually, sooner or later, my experience shows that you may be able to achieve a certain level of sobriety, but long-term sobriety and being happy and free, yeah, you better connect up to this power, man. You know, yeah, you need to.
Absolutely. And I think the next thing, you know, is, you know, living clean. Living clean is more than being drug free. Living clean means I don't sit around in the pity committee deciding whose fault everything is and where it all went wrong. And, you know, depression, anxiety stem from these things. And I'm not meaning to speak against anyone that suffers from those awful conditions. But personally speaking, now, you know, living clean is more than being drug free. It means that, you know, I strive to maintain a good conscience before God, you know, which means I try not to be in resentment, lust, hatred, arrogance, pride, all that crap, gluttony, gambling.
Yeah.
You know, I try to live clean. And my experience has been, you know, my perspective is that those that try to live clean, and those that don't try to live clean morally often end up dirty again, often end up using again. You know, they don't stay clean from drugs. That's been my experience. I've seen that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think, you know, God gives us lessons every day. You know, I was talking to a dear member earlier today about, you know, about discretion and discernment. These are divine gifts. You know, and little things crop up and we can learn from them. And, you know, I think one of the greatest things that I still endeavor to practice now is restraint of pen, tongue, and keyboard. I don't always get it right, but I do try. And it's saved me a lot of trouble, you know, because I've got a really big mouth, you know. And, you know, learning to wind my neck in, it saves a lot of trouble, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if I can come in on that living clean thing, yeah, I would agree. There's certain things that yeah, personal experience, yes, I would agree that, you know, but then if you are really truly wholeheartedly working the steps, then you have to live clean. The two are the same. You become out of self and more sort of God centric, if you see what I mean, rather than self centric. um you know, if you fully, as outlined, live those steps, and it's not about perfection, obviously, when you know, we're not Buddha, you know, you know, or some other deity, you know, but we are, you know, all of these, the residual, the sum total of our past is still within us. But what we're trying to do is unload that, and but then, and we're making a choice every day how we conduct ourselves moving forward. And if you've genuinely done the steps, I can't see, and you're genuinely living the steps, I can't see how you can't be living or trying to live clean. Otherwise, you're just cherry picking bits and pieces, aren't
Well,
you? And it's
well,
not
I
going to
can
work.
tell you why that is. because the ancient proverb says, to the pure, all things are pure, but to the corrupt is nothing pure. So there is a whole lot of persons out there that have worked the steps, but are not living morally clean. I know that's unthinkable to you and me, and that's because you and I are living clean, but not everyone is. But we've got to leave that with God. They're God's problem. You know, we've got to keep moving forward. And just to come back to alcoholism and sobriety, that last paragraph there talks about the mental defense. The alcoholic at certain times, or the addict at certain times, has no effective mental defense against the first drink, except in a few rare cases. Neither he nor any other human being can provide such a defense. His defense must come from a higher power. And that is the nub of it, really.
Yeah.
You know, the insurance policy for my sobriety is my conscious contact, you know, and the work I do. And I think another pitfall is when things are going well, we're not thankful, you know, and giving thanks, you know, to God, and working on ourselves, or some don't anyway. You know, I think the idea is, if we're doing reasonably well, is to keep, you know, a rolling stone gathers no moss.
Yeah.
You know, we've got to keep it moving, haven't we?
Just on that, Paul, I mean, when I pray, you know, before, when I would pray, I used to speak, God, please, you know, let me get this promotion. Please, I want to buy this house, or let me save up. I want to go on this holiday. Genuinely, Paul, when I pray now, it's just the steps, those step prayers, the resentment prayer. You know, I'm not praying for, and if you look at those 12 step prayers and you genuinely pray, and you've got to obviously tune into your God. I don't pray for anything else. I mean, so when things are going good or when things are going bad, it is what it is. You know, I'm not, you know, so equally, I don't. Perhaps that you've turned me on to something there, maybe to be thankful for things, but I just take life as it comes. Do you know what I mean, Paul? Good and bad, and I just keep praying for how I can be. That's the contract. When you finish the steps, you know, you are there to see you've got, as the book said, you've got a new employer now. you know Obviously I need to there's basic sort of security needs for my children, my family, but ultimately, um I'm here in service of God, my high power, and I'm here and in return he will keep me fit, and as a result of that, my those promises outlined in the book, they come true for me. So, you know, I do vision. I do a vision board, and I've got little things that I'd like how I would want my life to go, and that's quite powerful. But I don't pray for them, you know. But I fully believe if I do everything that's outlined for me in those, to the letter, you know, things come to, it's written, things will come to. I believe that book was divinely written, I really do. I really do, because it saves so many people, and it saved me, so
Yeah.
wow. Yeah.
Well, more will be revealed. You know what I mean? You and me both will hopefully have an improved perspective a day, a month, a year from now than what we have today. You know, that is the growth and the progression as we continue to build that relationship with God. And we change. Change is the only constant, isn't it? And I think you said it really. As we get into the solution, and what is the solution? The solution is to be in the solution and to be doing it, which is what we're doing right now. I'm listening to you, you're listening to me. We're practicing recovery, aren't we? We're actually doing recovery. You know what I mean? And working with others, I have noticed that when you're actually reading through the literature with them, or doing step work with them, or talking about prayer and solution, for that period of time, they're in the solution. And then I've noticed folks in early recovery, when they don't engage in recovery, they can very quickly get into the problem. And that's the key. Now, what does that mean on a day-to-day basis? It means that I make myself listen in meetings. It means that I make myself read the literature every day. It means I have my personal spiritual literature that I read every day. In fact, I was just reading it earlier. It's right next to me here. You know, I do my service. You know, if I say I'm going to be somewhere, I am there no matter what. You know, and regular frequency, consistency like that. And in the midst of all that, you know, miracles happen, and suddenly we're set on our feet. We've been changed. We've been transformed. You know, by the joy and the miracle of recovery. You know, it works. It really does. And it's a design for living that works in rough going. You know, and we all have moments, you know, where we feel miffed, or, you know, and I think a lot of persons in recovery, we often feel dishonored. We feel that folks are dishonoring us. It's a huge issue, you know, if we don't feel folks are treating us properly. So, you know, we're in it to win it, you know, and it's all on the table in recovery. Really, everything's to play for, I'd say. And, you know, the growth and the change does happen. I've seen that many miracles now. I could talk for hours, you know. A gentleman rang me this morning, and I remember when he first come along to our meeting, and he was in a very bad way. His marriage was over. He'd lost access to his children. He was gambling his life away, on cocaine every day in a hotel room, you know, in a terrible situation, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, maritally, etc., etc., etc. And he's now got over 2 years continuous sobriety. He rang me today to ask how I am, and it was just very moving, really.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I
So look,
mean,
we've pretty much come to the end of this recording, but I just want to hand it back to you for a couple of minutes if you want to share anything else with our listeners.
well, I mean, what I would say, I mean, you know, and I know we got a bit God centric there, and I don't want to scare anybody that might be listening to this. Please, yeah, this is a God of your own understanding. It's not, you know, my idea when I was a child was God was sitting on a cloud on a, you know, with a white, bit like Father Christmas, but in a white robe sort of thing, and a shepherd's stick, and you know, and if you didn't, you know, he was, and typically he was white, I'm black, you know, so it didn't speak to me. But find a God that does. And somebody told me a good thing to do, maybe a suggestion, is write down all the things that you would like your God to be, and there you go. There you've got some. And then, you know, when you've got that list, maybe that's, you can work with that as your, you know, that's probably a good place to start. It's really important, you know, that you find somebody, you know, who's armed with the facts. You know, there's a lot of people out there, you know, that sponsoring, but it's quite an important decision, who you pick, and you know, sponsors is quite important, that you know, your motivations are quite are true when you do this. There's a lot of ill people out there, I suppose, you know. And then when you've got, and when you've completed those steps, well, you've never really, that's the thing, you've never completed the steps, because really it's an ongoing sort of, it's circular, you know, you don't stop, you know, don't just, you know, finish that process, the first round, and then, you know, put it down, you know, just stay in this, as you said, Paul, the solution, you know. And the solution, that's the key to, you know, to everything, you know. You just give it, and all we have to do is just give up one thing to have everything, you know. So, you know, when I was using, my whole world was, you know, the obsession was totally just focused on cocaine, and I'd given up the cocaine, and you know, and everything else was just, you know, and following directions, you know. Life is, you know, it's really good, you know. And I'm not saying, as you said, Paul, you know, it's a design for living in rough going. Life isn't always good, you know, don't get me wrong, but my solution and my approach to life is, yeah, it's priceless, you know. It's priceless, you know. And I'm so thankful, I'm so grateful.
Beautiful, beautiful. So on the screen just now is information about meetings. All the ones in blue are on every single day. If you look at the top left underneath the pink box, you'll see the Breakfast Club every morning at 7:30. These are UK times, but anyone's welcome from anywhere in the world. Great Gratitude at 9:30. Pop-up Recovery at 10:30. Weekend Recovery is on at 2 p.m. There's a 24-hour meeting in the middle of the screen there, the one-to-one marathon. It's a very, very healthy non-stop meeting, very strong meeting. There's 2 ladies meetings every afternoon, 3 p.m, 5 p.m. Weekend recovery is on at 8 p.m. every night, and at 9:30 p.m. every night. Daily reprieve over on the top right underneath the pink box, also at 9:30 every night. Reaching out at 11 p.m. Tazana every night at midnight. So there's lots and lots of online meetings. Never be put off going to a Zoom meeting. You're not obliged to put your camera on. Indeed, only about a fifth of attendees do put the camera on, nor are you obliged to talk. Conversely, if you'd like to share, we'd love to hear from you. If you're in Great Britain, if you go to the web address in the top centre, cocaineanonymous.org.uk, you can find out information about face-to-face and online meetings, as well as lots of literature, books and pamphlets as well. So in closing, I just want to read a little bit, Nat, from page 85. It says here, up near the top, oh, I could have put it on the screen, but I'll just read it anyway. We are not fighting it. We will see that our new attitude towards drugs has been given us without any thought or effort on our part. It just comes. That is the miracle of it. We're not fighting it, neither are we avoiding temptation. We feel as though we've been placed in a position of neutrality, safe and protected. We've not even sworn off. Instead, the problem has been removed. It does not exist for us. We're neither cocky nor afraid. That's our experience. That's how we react, so long as we keep in a fit spiritual condition. Yeah. It's easy to let up on the spiritual program of action and rest on our laurels. We're headed for trouble if we do. For alcohol, drugs are a subtle foe. We're not cured of alcoholism and drug addiction. What we really have is a daily reprieve contingent on the maintenance of our spiritual condition. Every day is a day when we must carry the vision of God's will into all our activities. How can I best serve thee? Thy will, not mine, be done. These are thoughts which must go with us constantly. We can exercise our willpower along this line all we wish. It is the proper use of the will. Much has already been said about receiving strength, inspiration, and direction from Him who has all knowledge and power. If we've carefully followed directions, we have begun to sense the flow of His Spirit into us. To some extent, we have become God conscious. We've begun to develop this vital sixth sense, but we must go further, and that means more action. Step 11 suggests prayer and meditation. We shouldn't be shy on this matter of prayer. Better men than us are using it constantly. It works if we have the proper attitude and work at it. It would be easy to be vague about this matter, yet we believe we can make some definite and valuable suggestions. And it goes on page 86. More prayer, more power. Nat, thank you so much for coming on the channel today and giving your time to Cocaine Anonymous and to recovering and suffering addicts around the world. And, you know, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
It was an honor and a pleasure. Thank you very much for having me.
Okay, family, stay strong, stay connected. We'll be back soon with another broadcast. Bye for now. Thanks, Nat.